Hello, everybody. Welcome to the course. My name is AJ Barrios, and I'm Georgia Board Licensed Security, Firearms, and Detective Instructor. A little background about myself: I am an Army, Infantry, and Air Force Security Forces veteran. Joined the Army right out of high school. My first unit actually was at Fort Gillem. It's a 310 SLAP company. I was still in high school when I was there, which was pretty cool. High school kid running around with his uniform and his Marine Beret. But eventually, I was discharged in 2006 medically, so I would have stayed there if they would have let me, but no chance there. Since then, I've been working for the private security arena. I've worked for many known security agencies, both stateside and abroad. Um, Security is. I love doing security. I love security management. I love all those aspects. It's a fun industry. I mean, I've worked as a security officer checking IDs at gates, and I've managed over 220 armed security officers in my largest contract. I have numerous certifications with a lot of different agencies. I worked in places like the Middle East. I worked in shopping malls, worked in law enforcement agencies, bio labs, um, IT places. It's data centers, and so I've been around the block a bit. One of the things I am very proud of is having students in 16 countries. I didn't expect that to happen. Um, Thankfully through the internet, I've had the opportunity to teach people everywhere and subjects when it comes to security. Um, I'm actually hoping to get students all over the globe. I'm currently working on start duplicating my courses in Spanish to see how I can spread to South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Hope maybe even Spain. Who knows? Now, what this course covers, we'll be going over things like personnel management, operations management, program management, public relations management, hiring, and dealing with like unionized employees versus and non-unionized employees. We'll talk about supply chain management as it pertains for security office, for security management, resource management, emergency planning, and some other subjects.
As a security professional, you need to be aware of the law. In the United States, we need to be aware that a law that is enforced in one state could very well be totally different in another state. We all have to observe federal laws, however, we need to be aware of the laws of the state that we operate in. We also need to be aware of local laws and laws that may apply in certain areas. In some jurisdictions, private security has the same authority as a police officer of that jurisdiction. In other places, what the security officer can do can be quite limited. You need to be aware of criminal trespass laws, use of force laws, search and seizure, and anything else that applies. This also goes for knowing if your state requires special training or not. For instance, in the state of Georgia, security is governed under the Georgia Secretary of State GA Board of Private Detective and Security Agencies. Training is required to be at least 24 hours long for unarmed guards, and 16 hours for armed guards. Other states do not have many requirements, if any. We also need to be aware of privacy laws. At times an incident occurs on the property and information may need to be shared with others. Can you give information readily to law enforcement? Many times you cannot. They may need a warrant. There is information that needs to be protected at all times. Failure to know what the law is will hold you and your company liable. You may also need to ensure that your site has proper signage. Ignorance of the law is never a good defense. As we talked about earlier, you also need to be very aware of any licensing requirements of your guard force. They must be trained by the standards of the state you are operating in. If there is no state board for security, then ensure that they are trained to the standards of the company you are working for. In Georgia, for instance, the 24-hour guard course has to cover very specific topics for a very specific amount of time. The officer also has to be tested on their knowledge and that information has to be stored safely. GA law also outlines what security uniforms must have on them, and what a guard can and cannot do with their uniform. In other states, like Florida, if a security officer is seen in a place of business that they are not operating in, they can be ticketed for wearing that uniform outside of their workplace. There they are, half-dozen things that all managers need to better understand to be effective. Notice, I said, all managers. We get caught up in thinking that, as security managers, we are different somehow, since we deal with matters of life and death, protect the assets of the company, its employees, the customers, and anyone coming onto our premises. This narrow thinking is why business executives wonder about the ability of security to deal with the depth and breadth of the business they are to serve. And, it is service. No, not protect and serve. Rather, It is about enabling the business that employs you to be successful. So, whether you are perceived as a cost center or think you are able to impact the bottom line, you need to make sure you are being listened to. And, I do not mean that you think you are being listened to. I mean receiving a level of respect for what you bring to the discussion table. While it ultimately is about delivering results, the fact is, failing to understand these key points prevents security from delivering on the promise. Although there is much that can be said about each of these points, constraints of time and space require brevity. So, here they are. 1. The importance of supporting the business strategy. Let's cut to the chase. Please allow me to provide a real-world example. A global retail firm has decided to expand into a new geographic market. The various heads of the business functions have been asked how they might align their efforts with this growth strategy. After everyone provided their strategic perspective that would enable this growth, the head of security weighed in and suggested the need to install RFID systems in all the new locations. Heads turned. Wrong problem solved. The use of RFID has nothing to do with moving into a new market. Rather, to align security with the business strategy, the security manager should have offered to conduct a risk analysis of the threats and opportunities the business may face in the new market and suggest ways to ameliorate or mitigate the problems discovered, so as to enable the market expansion to occur with less risk and, potentially, more profitably. 2. Managing is as important as leading. It has famously been said that leadership is doing the right things and management is doing things right. It has also been said that leaders transform organizations, while managers merely take care of it. Consequently, is it any wonder why everyone wants to be known as a leader? Or, as noted in the Dilbert comic strip, managers are often viewed as impediments to business success.
Misunderstanding the value of managing has, in part, been promulgated by academics talking and writing about transformational leadership as an essential ingredient for success, relegating the concept of transactional leadership, i.e.,
management, to the back shelf. Well, the reality is that most managers are hired to go just that, manage. And, failing to manage effectively will result in the company finding someone else who can. Effectively managing a budget or executing a program is not about leadership. It requires a clear understanding of processes and systems and attentiveness to detail. Delivering results is as much about managing things effectively as it is about leading. As the old saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. That requires a level of management. 3. Decision-making is a process. I can and have conducted presentations and executive development sessions solely on the process of decision-making. So, brevity on this point will be difficult. But, here it is. Decisions are never best made when hearing the first thing that agrees with your thinking. Such actions fail to value the process necessary for effective decisions. Even when done in crises or at a critical moment, there is a process. Everyone from hostage negotiators to bond traders to healthcare workers to senior executives have their minds run through a process for making certain decisions. And, it begins with being clear on the problem. Many decisions fail because they solve the wrong problem. Further, decisions require information, not all of which is of equal value nor should be treated the same. It is from that information that different alternatives arise, and from these alternatives a choice will be made, which must be communicated to those responsible for carrying it out. But, effective decisions do not stop there. The final aspects of the process involves follow-up to determine if the problem has been solved. If not, the process may need to circle back to a specific step from which the process needs to be repeated. Rushing to decisions without determining if you have sufficient information to solve the right problem will lead to poor decisions, which is not in your best interest, because consistently making effective decisions are what helps deliver valued results, and that is what keeps managers employed. 4. Competitive forces. This is not easy to describe in a brief manner because it involves a number of moving pieces. So, let's keep it simple and allow the reader an opportunity at self-discovery. What industry are you in? Where are your businesses located? What do you sell and to whom? What external factors affect your business? What internal factors affect your business? What is the company's generic strategy? As you can see, depending upon where a company competes and how, competitive forces affect each business differently. Understanding these forces enables companies to develop their various strategies. For security, aligning their functional strategies with those of the larger business is critical to enabling business success. 5. Key financial measures. I know what you are thinking. I understand ROI. Good start. What about liquidity ratios, financial leverage ratios, asset utilization, profitability ratios, and market value ratios? Not so much? Join the club. Most security managers, and all too many, non-financial managers, fail this litmus test. And, it is a litmus test. These metrics are important because they provide the means to compare your business with itself and with others from a performance perspective. Does it matter that your company's current ratio is 0.48, while it is 2.12 for the industry? Yes, Because the higher the ratio, the better the financial performance, and there is often a threshold of success for the industry. Where does your company fit? Does it matter? Sure, try to get an increase in budget or capital funds when your company is 0.48 and others are 2.12.6. Balancing risk is a business reality, and terrorism is only one of many risks. Just to be clear, companies that do not grow are 5 times more likely to be acquired or go out of business. Even a disaster like the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, while severely damaging the financial industry, aviation, and many other ancillary businesses, did not cause them to fail. However, poor decisions leading to poorer results led to the demise of Circuit City, Lehman Brothers, DeLorean Motor Company, Wang Laboratories, Computers, Orion Pictures, Long-Term Capital Management, run by 2 Nobel laureates, not to mention a number of railroads, airlines, retail stores, restaurants, and nearly 250 different U.S. banks since 2007, and still counting. You get the picture. So, what else might prove more problematic than terrorism? Depends on the business, but here is a short list that might keep the CEO awake at night: natural disasters, supply chain disruption, class action lawsuits, product tampering or recall, failed product rollouts, industrial accidents, labor unrest, new governmental regulations, threat of acquisition, and, the one we all know can have a material impact on a company, economic recession. By the way, this did not include the normal threats that come from strong competition. So, when considering the risks facing your company, understand that there is a greater chance you will be hit by lightning than your business will be victimized by terrorism. So, keep perspective. A risk is not simply a risk, some are truly more likely to occur than others, and balancing risk is what senior executives are expected to do. Arguing for spending large amounts of money or creating conditions that impair rather than promote the business fails at understanding how security needs to position the business for success. To use the words of a restaurant manager, we can stop all threats by simply locking our doors and not letting customers inside. But, we cannot make money that way. Exactly. Clearly, the job of a security manager has become far more complex than it was 20 years ago. The availability of information made easier by the internet and the nature of competition made more complex by globalization have created greater management challenges. You cannot afford to be viewed as the corporate cop, if anyone ever really subscribed to that role. A business manager responsible for security must truly understand and support business growth in a tangible manner. For some, this may seem a blinding grasp of the obvious. Perhaps it is. But, then why is it that security managers often speak about not having as much influence as other business functions? Or why, as a fairly recent survey pointed out, is security asked to do more with less, implying that others are not? The answer may be surprisingly simple. While you might understand business, perhaps it is not well enough. To be clear, the 6 points mentioned are not meant to be an exhaustive list of what will make you successful. Rather, they are just a beginning to what should be a new level of inquiry and learning. Now we will be going through the role of security managers. Once again, thank you for staying here with me. Security managers are responsible for monitoring the security operations for any organization or company. They implement security policies, regulations, rules, and norms and make sure that the environment in their organization is safe for employers and visitors. These managers are required to hire new members for the staff and delegate tasks and duties to them. One of their main duties is to check and monitor the access control of the people who are visiting the company. Security managers usually perform the following: keeping track of different events, implementing security protocols, creating emergency response procedures, conducting security evaluations, supervising security staff members. They also need to have a certain skill set. This can include having good communication skills, being physically fit, having good knowledge of security environments and hazards, being polite, having interpersonal skills, being analytical, having leadership skills, being proactive, having good negotiation skills, being able to work with a team, and finally, not having the personality of a foot. As managers and security professionals, our whole function is to protect people, property, information, and reputation. These 4 elements can be expanded into other areas, but these 4 are the main objectives. Ultimately, managers and security directors need to understand the requirements of the contract or the company as it applies to the protection of the 4 things we mentioned earlier. We need to interpret what is needed and deliver a robust security program that fulfills what the contract needs and provides the security that is warranted. Here is an example: a wealthy client owns a huge section of a major city, and police are being cut due to political pressure, and the client tells you this: I need you to provide security for the shopping district, the parking decks, and the living area for this entire zip code. I need security on the bus routes, and I want the officers to be able to respond anywhere within 5 minutes of a call. I want this done yesterday. So you as the security manager need to figure out how to meet the requirements of the contract and design the physical security program. What can you do legally? What can you not do? What vehicles do we need? What training requirements are there? How can you do this economically? Obviously, the manager cannot be everyone at once. You're going to need to design a chain of command to help you. So you have supervisors that will help with your program. Finally, you will need security officers. What are security officers? A security officer is a person employed by a government or private party to protect the employing party's assets, property, people, equipment, money, etc., from a variety of hazards, such as waste, damaged property, unsafe worker behavior, criminal activity such as theft, etc., by enforcing preventative measures. Security guards do this by maintaining a high visibility presence to deter illegal and inappropriate actions, looking, either directly, through patrols, or indirectly, by monitoring alarm systems or video surveillance cameras, for signs of crime or other hazards, such as a fire, taking action to minimize damage, such as warning and escorting trespassers off property, and reporting any incidents to their clients and emergency services, such as the police or paramedics, as appropriate. Security officers are generally uniformed to represent their lawful authority to protect private property. Security guards are generally governed by legal regulations, which set out the requirements for eligibility, for example, a criminal record check, and the permitted authorities of a security guard in a given jurisdiction. The authorities permitted to security guards vary by country and subnational jurisdiction. Security officers are hired by a range of organizations, including businesses, government departments and agencies, and not-for-profit organizations, for example, churches and charitable organizations. These are the people that do all the work. They are the ones that respond to calls. They are the infantry of your army.